Well, hello. I think I'm ready. Other YouTubers will know what it's like before you sit down and do a YouTube. Well, you erect everything and you look at yourself and you think, oh no, and then you think, no, come on, I'm going to do an episode. And anyway, you just have to jump in at the end, and that's where I am. I've jumped in. So I'm just saying hello to friends. You're most welcome. I don't know what I'd do without you, actually. Yeah, I haven't been doing much since November, since Pete got ill, and this week is no exception. I've been at home nursing him, but boy, is he getting better. He's put on nearly 1.5 stones in as many weeks as he's been home. So he looks so much better. He's able to stand now without me jumping up and panicking that he's going to, fall down to the floor. He can walk about. Yeah, he's okay. And that's what the film is at the end, actually. The couple of days this week, it's been absolutely sunny and glorious. And I've said to him, shall we see if you can get in the car? Yeah, he got in the car. Bit of a struggle getting out because we've got quite a low car. But anyway, he did it. And I just drove him to the bottom of the road and round to the front. I'll walk there and back. That's what we call it. Usually we stride out and walk into the town and back. But I just drove him to the top, and it's not pavements along there, it's all tarmac. And of course you think, oh no, why do they take the pavements away? But it's rather handy actually, because it stops you tripping over. So he got out the car, there's several benches all along, and he walked from bench to bench, had a sit down and just looked at the sea, and I took a little film. And so there are his first tentative steps outside. So that's a joy. And we're talking to doing that this week, getting his strength up. His strength is getting up, and he's able to stand up straighter, and yeah, it's looking like the man he should do. So that's all good. Thank you for all your well wishes. It's been such a joy to me and such a help. I know you're out there, and that's always a help, isn't it? Now, I've got a little book. Hang on, I'm just going to go and get my little book because I wrote something down. Oh, here it is. As usual, I don't know. Oh, yeah. As usual, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm going to say. I've got a pile of stuff here to show you. We'll see where that gets. Because this week for me, whilst I have been nursing Pete, it's been a lot less nursing. I mean, when he came home, he was delirious. He was going to clear the garage out. I said, well, can you stand up? And he's desperate to get in his garden, but hang on a minute. Will you fall down? All of that. But now, not that he's ready to go in the garden or do the garage, but now his brain's starting to work, and it's been a lot easier. But I found myself feeling a little bit, tired out actually. So I've been sitting, knitting, chatting with him. He's done a good few meals this week. He's been able to get in the kitchen, prepare it, cook it. Then I've said, right, you go and sit down and I'll dish it up, or just finish off cooking it, but that's what he likes to do. That's what he just likes to do, be in his garden and cook. So if he can't be in the garden, well, it is mid-Feb, so no, we're not in Hawaii. I have a new subscriber who's in Hawaii, and she said it's 72 degrees and people are in, trousers and under quilts, and it's cold. But for us, 72 is the most perfect of temperatures. It's just lovely. That's Fahrenheit. What's 72 Fahrenheit? I did look it up. Oh, hang on, I'll look it up. I've got my MacBook here. It's 22. That's our perfect. Well, it's my perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, but for them, it's rather darn chilly. So what it would be like if you popped over here and had a visit, because what's the temperature today? I'll look it up. Oh, it's 12 here, which for mid-February, 12 is just amazing. It doesn't feel like mid-Feb. It's just lovely. little bit of a chilly breeze, but not today. It's not too breezy at all, but it's a bit dull. I could have turned the camera around, but anyway, I'm sitting in my chair this way and it's been easy. So that's 5 minutes in, waffle, pure waffle. But that's what Chinwag's all about, isn't it? Waffle. Now, I was looking on the Alzheimer's website, and it said Chinwag, chat, chew the fat. So it's good. It's good to stave off Alzheimer's, or if you have Alzheimer's, it's good to chat. That's what we need. We don't need isolation, do we? Pete hasn't been in isolation because he's had family visit him. But I'm thinking it's time now for others to visit. But then you hear of people with COVID and bad flu, and we certainly don't want that in the house, you know. My daughter wanted to visit yesterday with my great-grandson. She had him for the weekend. But she said he's got a bit of a temperature. Mum, I won't come round. So that was all right. But yeah, we do need to see people, don't we? So fantastic. The YouTube family is out there and we chat and we interact. We might get it wrong sometimes, but that doesn't matter. We can't get everything right, can we? Yeah. Sometimes I think, oh, I must get it right. I must get it right. Oh, that's from the old days, isn't it? Must and get it right. Who's talking to me there? If you've watched back for my TA, transactional analysis, you'll understand. Or if you're an old viewer, you'll understand that too. It's controlling parent. Controlling parent often says, I must get it right. I should get it right. And I must be perfect. But I don't have to be. I know that. We have to tell ourselves that sometimes, don't we? And sometimes when we're crafting, we think it must be right. We must get it right. The old controlling parent saying, don't get it wrong. But often when we get things wrong, it can lead to a different road. Or, well, we can learn wabi-sabi to rejoice in imperfection. Wabi-sabi, I like that. I found that during lockdown. Have you seen my wabi-sabi flowers? I'll get them. Here they are, my wabi-sabi. Now these have got the strongest scent. They really have. They're in the bottom of the garden and they come up April, May. They're beautiful. And at the beginning of lockdown, I picked them and brought them indoors. Why wouldn't I? And I just love flowers when they dry. My tulips last me forever. I don't throw them away. I just let them dry. And they have all different poses and, oh, they're gorgeous. They really are. I've got a bunch in the conservatory at the minute. They're hanging over rather like these. Wabi-sabi, taking joy in imperfection. Anyway, that's it. I'll shut up now. Well, I've got a lot to show you here. I've got a pile here. Now, somebody said, what jumper did I have on last week? Well, I've got another one. I just love this wool. Can't buy it anymore. You know, they discontinue these things. I knitted 3, actually. I knitted the first one out of the book. Can you see that? There it is. That's my first one. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, I'll be able to zoom in when I edit. Then I knitted a blue one, which I had on last week, and I knitted this one. This one I just sewed down the middle. I didn't even knit it in one piece. I just knitted it and sewed it down the middle. So I've got this little sort of gap. Can you see? But it's all right. I think I might have knitted it edge to edge and then decided I wanted it as a jumper. So I sewed it up. Yeah, wabi-sabi. But they're so comfortable. And I look in the book. The book is Nouveau by Louisa Harding. One of my favourite knitting pattern designers. Is that what we call them? Yeah. And this is particularly nice. I've knitted quite a few things out of here. And I knitted it in 2009. Yes, which leads me on to, what else did I knit out of here? Oh, that one. I knitted that. It's got a V back too. I wasn't keen on the V back. I would knit that again, but not keen on the V back. I can just knit it. Oh, this, I love this. Look, with what to knit with the wool, a bag. Isn't that pretty? I bought the handles, but never knitted the bag. I should do that. And as you can see, the pattern for this is in there too. It takes a minute, but it's rather nice. So that's what it is, Louisa Harding from the book. If you can get it still, I'm sure my little wool shop, she sold all of new Louisa Harding's, and that's where I bought the wool. Walked into town, doing our there and back, spotted it and knitted it. So there we are. Put that on the floor. Now, that moves me on, you see. 2009 I knitted it. It's still perfectly good. Why? Because you pop things on, you take them off. I don't wash things to death, don't need to. They're fine. I know I watch, I've forgotten it now. No, I'll have to let that thought go. But anyway, you all know her. And she, what's she called? Oh, I'll put it on the screen. Anyway, I know she knits everything beautifully and does all her Fair Isle and all of that. And it's a beautiful program that she does. She interviews different designers, but she says once a year she washes her jumpers because wool breathes. And, anyway, here's the one that's shown in the it's quite a loose style. And this is, it's looking great. Well, it's looking the colour of my bedroom. Look at it on screen, it looks a bit grey, but it is. Can you see the green I put round the bottom? Oh, my little great-granddaughter used to say green when she was little. So whenever the family say green, we have to say green after it. But anyway, there it is. It's a sort of grey-green. But it does look pretty with that. Maybe I ought to do another one. So here we are. Oh, this has got this one round the edge. And the blue one I had on last week has got this wool round the edge. So and you can see how fluid it is. It's so lovely. It just hangs beautifully. Right, so what have I been doing this week? I've been sitting chatting to Pete, getting his brain going, looking after him. It's as I said, it's been a little bit more normal. But I knitted my friend. She wanted one. Why wouldn't she want one? I say. A Silver River shawl. And I've got the little label to put on. I got that from Craft House Magic, Ellie. And I've knitted this. She wanted neutral colours, but it's like a Neapolitan ice cream, really, because I used all the wool, I got from Ellie. That's cashmere, silk, So it's got a beautiful feel to it. What's the right side? That's the right side. So it's got blue. And this lovely, I think that I knitted my granddaughter her shawl in this because she loves yellow. I put a bit of pink in because I had it. It's a grey blue. In real life, it's got quite a lot of blue in it. Can you see that? Blues and here we go. That is grey. That's a John Arbon grey. And this is something that Ellie dyed up specially. I asked her to do little, because I love the pinks and purples, and she dyed that for me. So I thought, right, I'm going to use it. And here it is. I love it. I hope my friend does too. I said to Pete, I think I need to get out. He said, you get out, love. I said, I think I can leave you now. And so I've made arrangements to go out and have a girly lunch with my friend, and she'll get that then. I'll take the liberty of putting it on, see what it looks like. Yeah, just see that little hint of colours coming through. It's lovely. Right, sorry, I'm keeping that. That's not for you, but it is. I'll be too hot if I leave it on, so I better take it off. It's just a little bit like Neapolitan ice cream, isn't it? You see those little bits coming through. Right. Sorry, I've dropped it on the floor. Everything's going down there. Did you know, washing machine head this week, did you know, well, if you're a new subscriber, you don't know what washing machine head is. If you're an old subscriber, you've heard me talk about it before. And if you're a friend, well, you go through washing machine heads with me. But I've had one big time this week. I'm going to tell you what kicked it off. But just whilst I was finding out about things, I came across this fact. The biggest hard drive you can get has got 10,000 gigabytes, but our brain has got 2.5 million gigabytes. That's amazing, isn't it? So when I say somewhere in the back of my brain, it is there, but the thing is, we can only hold, the scientists say, at any one time, 4 discrete thoughts. So if I'm holding thoughts in my head whilst I'm talking to you, I can only hold 4. And that's why I think when I'm chatting away, I've got this going, I'm thinking, what am I going to be saying to you? What have I said to you? Oh, how's it looking? Does it look all right? I can't think of the name of the person who I want to talk about because she's there, but I can only hold 4 in my head at any one time. So there's a fact. So what has my washing machine head been about? Well, let me just show you some things I've found, or shall I? I'll tell you before, otherwise it won't make sense. But whilst I was sorting it all out and finding all out about it, I came across this. And it was a Pene that my mother-in-law bought. We said to them, they were really getting on a bit. But we said, would you like to go to Italy with us? Wow, my mother-in-law had never been abroad. And she said straight away, yes, because how marvellous. We said, well, we're going camping. Yes, whatever you're doing, we'll come. And so we left. We drove through France, through Italy, across the Dolomites. And no, we went to France. That's right. France, Germany, Austria, Italy, across the Dolomites. I thought they'd never end. Got a bit worrying, actually. In England, you tend to think, oh, we'll go across this mountain range. I mean, you're only on it an hour, but going across the Dolomites, it takes a day. And yeah. Anyway, we went to Austria and Italy and Germany. We stayed in 3 campsites, one in Germany, one in Austria, and one in Italy. And they absolutely loved it. It was the kind of thing that when you got there, the tent was all put up and, it was all, but we did have some fun. We really did have some fun. The next year, we went and we hired a villa and we went straight to Italy. We still drove and they loved it. We had one of those cars that, a Citroen, where you could get, and we had the girls right in the back and mum and dad in the middle, and we were in the front, obviously. But she bought this Pene from Austria. She loved it. Well, I couldn't keep, it was bulky. So I thought, well, I'll cut a bit off. Well, I can put that in my 5-inch squares now. It might even take up 2. I might have to cut it across. I don't know. But now I'm doing my 5-inch quilt as you go. It's going to be good. I can use it. So I came across that anyway. But what sparked it was I'm watching, oh, here we go, The Brain. Oh, don't tell me I've forgotten her name too. Of course I haven't. Stitch with Rachel. I'm watching Rachel. In fact, way back, I left a message on Rachel's, episode saying I would love to join in. She's making a temperature quilt, taking the temperature highs and lows of the day. And I thought, oh, I'd love to do that. Shall I do that? But then everything went crazy here, and I couldn't possibly do it. I struck on the quilt as you go, just to do one and just to do one. But I've been in touch with Rachel because the last episode she put up, she put vintage. She put the word vintage. Why? Because she bought from Etsy a quilt, and she's repairing it, and she's going to finish it. She's decided that a group of ladies have sewed it, because sometimes there's really neat stitching, and at other times it's quite different. Bit mayhem, really. And so she thought maybe a WI ladies sat round and made it, or contributed to it and contributed putting it together. But she called it her vintage quilt. And then she said she thinks it was made in the 80s, and it made me jump. The 80s? I was 35 in the 80s. Is that vintage? Hang on a minute. I got washing machine head then. That's how my head goes. What is vintage? What's retro? What's antique? Is the 80s vintage? So I had to look it up. And then, of course, it led me onto this pile here. Okay, so I've got a website here, and I'll tell you what it says. Not that one. This one. Okay. Vintage v antique v retro. Very simply, it says on this website, vintage. It's broader age. No, let's do antique first. No, I don't want notifications. Right. Antique. At least 100 years old. It may include handmade, wooden furnishings, paintings, and other decor. Antique. We get that. It's got to be 100 years old. Well, does that mean some of the things that I've got that were my mother-in-law's? She was born in 1907, 2007. They're going to be classed as antiques now, aren't they? Her wedding veil. I've got her wedding veil. She got married, I think, in 1930. Would that be? What would that be? 1930. Well, we're coming up. Won't be long and it'll be antique. Yeah. Vintage then. What's vintage on this? It's broader age requirement than antiques. It must be old enough to feel like a pre-existing time period. Items from 20 to 99 years old. So if you look at this website, the 1980s is vintage because it's longer than 20 years old. But to me, it doesn't feel vintage. Wow, because I remember the 80s like it was yesterday. But as Rachel says, she was born in 1990. So to her, the 80s is vintage. I suppose then it's subjective, isn't it? Retro, it may not be old at all. Newly made, but designed to look like vintage or antique items. Why? Because it evokes styles of times past, and people want that. We had a very nice chair in the 60s. We got married. We didn't have very much furniture, but we did have this one chair. We didn't keep it, but it's the most reproduced. I mean, now it would be absolutely vintage. But the ones they make now to look like it are retro. Yeah, because it evokes that feeling, but it's newly made. But then if I go onto this other website, the collector, right, okay, we understand antique at least 100 years old. Antiquity is way back in the past. We understand that I can grasp. Okay, washing machine head, still going round. He says vintage, 1900s to 1960s, and I go along with that. That to me, originally the word vintage described the year and location of a wine. Now it refers to items from the early 1900s up to the end of 1960s. I can get that. The 60s to me, I can see that as vintage. Then it says retro. Recent nostalgia from the 1960s to the 1990s. Retro comes from the French word retro, meaning to move backwards. The world's first usage was in 1972 and encompasses colourful new technology and fashion up until the 1990s. Any item at least 15 years old can count as retro. However, you can also call something retro if it's new but still evokes vibrant styles like mod or maximalism. Wow. So here we go. That makes more sense to me. Retro. From the 60s to 1990s. And anything made now, copying that, is retro. Vintage, he says, is 1900s to 1960s. Sorry to labour the point, but it just went round in my head. It made me feel, oh, there's the J flying past. It made me feel like when Pete was in the ward, in the, I want to say gynecologic ward. No, not at all. What's the ward for older people? You see, my brain, I can't hold more than 4 thoughts. Yeah, you know what it is. It's paediatric if it's children, and it's geriatric if it's old people. Although I don't think it has to be too old now, washing machine head. Geriatric, meaning older adults. Older adults, it just says there. Let's see if we can put an age to it. Or is it going to be like vintage and retro? Definition and meaning. Old, elderly, old and outmoded. Oh, it's since most medical care is devoted to those over 65. Geriatrics, it's the medical treatment of the elderly. Well, of course, I don't even think of 65 as being elderly. Not in the slightest form. I didn't retire till I was 71, so why would I think it was elderly? I'm waffling here. Do you want a waffly one? Well, you've got one. Fast forward if not. Or see me next week, because I've still got this to show you. So you see where I've been heading with the old washing machine head. Do geriatrics get washing machine head, or do they sit and stare into space? Well, right, let's get on. So I found this piece of material. I made this in the late 70s. I've shown it in my earlier episodes. Late 70s. Vintage, retro? Well, they said vintage to the end of the 60s, so we'll call this retro. But of course, I didn't know what to do with it. It was just in a box. I'm going to put it in my 5-inch squares now. It's brilliant, isn't it? Yes, but then you see, I used to, even though I didn't have any money, when you know, similar, you've got a mortgage, you're bringing up 2 small kids. I bought fabric material from Liberties. Why? Because I didn't make many clothes. I'm still the same now. I don't have many clothes, but what clothes I do have, I keep forever. And this is something I made in the 70s, Liberty print, Liberty buttons, matching. I made it in the 70s, retro. But you see, then I started making quilts, so I haven't got back to it. So you see, you can't say it's retro, because, well, it is retro, but I need to, 5-inch square. I need to use that, don't I? Not keep it in a box. But I like holding it. You know, I like using the bits in my quilts, but I like having the dress as well. Then we get on to, should we hold on to things or not? Is it good enough to have a 5-inch square, or do we want the actual thing? It still fits me. Yeah. I have to leave you to draw your own conclusions. Now, this one, I was breastfeeding Nicola when I wore this. So my daughter, Nicola, my youngest, is 51. So here we go. Another Liberty. It's as tiny as, I mean, look at the size of the waist. I couldn't get in this now. I couldn't get in it. But again, the front's been cut off for my quilts. But I just love having the dress. Shall I keep hold of it? I bought this. It's gone. But it is Liberty. It did say made from Liberty fabrics. So I didn't make this one. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the front, the top. Shall I repurpose it? No. What shall I do? What shall I do with it? Put it back in the box? Something about... Now this is what you call vintage. Not worth anything because I've cut it up. Now, here again, my daughter's babe. Now, my daughter, Kim, you know Kim. My daughter, Kim, she another shock, washing machine head. She told me in April she's 55. It can't be. It can't be. But it is. And this is her baby sheet. Do I cut it up? Do I use it for the back of a quilt? I just love looking at it. It's in the box. I had a pair. I think I gave her one. And I did line a bag I made for her with it. But, yeah. She was born in 69. Vintage. Whoopsie. Now, where are we going to put this? This is a dress I made for Tommy's mum, my granddaughter. I made this little dress for her. Whenever I made a dress for her, I made one for Georgina, my other granddaughter, because there's not that much between them. I think Lois is 26, coming 26, 27. And I made this for her when she's a little toddler. Probably Tommy's age. I liked the pattern. It had this little collar that, you know, different segments. But again, used it for my quilts. So you couldn't pass that on. It's got stains on it anyway. Bits cut off for the quilt. Am I going to cut that up and make it into a 5-inch square? Or do I love holding the dress? It's in the box. But that, I feel, Would you put that in retro? Is my granddaughter's dress old enough to be retro now? Well, this I made, oh, here's another piece of fabric. I made them both dresses out of this. I think Georgina's got the dress. She's still got the dress. She loved it so much. I've got a little piece of the fabric, 5-inch square. This, I made Pete. It's a beautiful piece of fabric. And this is the pocket, actually. I made him, he wanted a dressing gown that went almost to the floor and had a big collar. We called it the Poirot dressing gown, you know. It was more like a smoking jacket, but it was a dressing gown. He loved it. He wore it till it, you know, it had worn out, frankly. But so I couldn't keep it. It was too big. So I kept the pocket, 5-inch square. That's all right. Ah, what do we do with this? Vintage Pene. Pretty, isn't it? Now, what do we do with these vintage things? Do we cut them up? Do we wear them? Do we repurpose them? It's pretty. Oh, no, look. I've cut it and used it in a quilt. Oh, you see? Am I supposed to cut these vintage things up? Washing machine head. Now tell me what to do with this. You've all got to tell me what to do with this. You know, if you've ever done pulled work, you know how long it takes, what it takes to do this work. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We don't use things like this anymore. Should we start using them again? Or should we cut them up and do slow stitching with them? It's got little holes in it, only a few. Should we patch it? Somebody's done this. It's all hand done. And it's been sent to the laundry because it's got a little red mark there. A laundry, just a little bit of, obviously it's had a label put there. This is all hand done. Look, but you can see the little threads. It's in the box. What do I do with it? What work? Look at this. Well, you tell me. You tell me in the comments. Now this I bought in 1990 and it's a Louis Farrow, which is a beautiful maker. The skirt is still being worn. It's silk and the skirt flows and hangs like nothing else. I've got the top. It evokes such memories for me. The skirt was made of the spotty material, spotty fabric. Oh, it's beautiful. But you see, this is old. It's got stains under the sleeves. I think it might even have a stain down the front. Oh, there's the spotty material. It's beautiful. It's the most gorgeous silk. It's in the box. Do I cut it up and make 5-inch squares with it? Do I use it for backing? What do I do? Oh, I've got myself in photographs with it on. I always thought it was a bit pale for me, actually, but the skirt was just divine. Do I cut it up? Do I keep it? It's lovely holding it. Will I still like holding it in a 5-inch square? I think I've gone on enough. I was going to show you this. Vintage. Retro. Oh dear. I've made my point. I've answered it, I think. Golden hands. Do you remember that? I've got the date on here. 1972. But it has got a nice pattern in it. I liked it. Telling you how to embroider your own clothes. There's nothing new under the sun, is it? It's all been done before. But we might not have done it before. I mean, work on caftans. I mean, that dates it, doesn't it? Oh, I can hear Pete chopping the veg. We're going to have lunch in a minute. I better get it moving. Now, this is the pattern I quite liked, and I think I'm going to knit it for Pete. Nice, isn't it? No man can have too many sweaters for weekend and holiday wear. Set-in sleeves, stripes. It looks good, yet it's easy to knit. I think I might, nothing's changed really in all these years, has it? Except for the man displaying a pipe and trying to look cool and groovy. I got it out the box. I thought I might leave that out. Dolls patterns. We're knitting toys now, aren't we? Like no tomorrow. But it's not new. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, washing machine head. Thanks for joining me. It's been lovely. I've got a fascinating fact, and I'll come on and say goodbye after that. See you in a minute. A fish called the Californian Grunion spawns on the beaches of California. They're 5 to 7 inches long and know the precise days and times when to spawn so their offspring will survive. The 3 or 4 nights after the highest tide, connected with the full moon. If they spawn before, their eggs would be washed away. After the high tide, the waves start to recede and sand is redeposited. The eggs are safe under the increasing layer of sand. This phenomenon happens at night in the spring and summer, as the tide at night is higher than the tide during the day, which is safer for the eggs too. The fish surf the waves, the female digs a hole, the male wraps himself around. It only takes seconds. The mechanical action of the waves of the next rising tide triggers hatching. It can be predicted a year in advance due to the timing of the full moon and rising tide. What a spectacle all the small silver fish must make in the moonlight. Aren't they gorgeous? Imagine in California seeing that. They just know. You can book it in advance, a year in advance, get down to the beach, you know the day they're all going to be there. Wonderful creation that they know too. Well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining me. Take care this week. Happy crafting if that's what you do. And if not, have a nice week. Wherever you are. Some of you, it's very hot. Oh, yes, I know. I said in Melbourne, I'd love to be sitting out in that sun. And my viewers said, oh, yes, but we've just had a storm. We've got no internet. And it's boiling. Boiling. Something like 38. Couldn't cope. So, yeah, I'll stick with what I've got. I'll be content. And I'll see you next time. So we've got a little film just when I was down at the seafront with Pete taking his first tentative steps. See you next time. Bye-bye. Well, I've got to come back on because I've got to tell you that Tommy has got a dog. Tommy's dad has been brought up with dog. Tommy's my great-grandson. Oh, there's the shopping. It's being delivered. I'll pop back. Oh, I just had to come back on. Yeah, that was the shopping. We've got that in now. What? Ah, yes. Tommy, my little great-grandson, his daddy has been brought up with dogs, always had dogs. I mean, several dogs, not just one. And he realised that he was so missing his dogs. And so they bought a dog this weekend. I think it's a whippet. Anyway, there's a little picture here of Tommy with his new dog. He's literally only been taken this morning and he's just been introduced to him. So, yeah, I thought I'd put that up. So we remember the day when Tommy met. Well, I don't even know the dog's name. I wonder what it is. If I find out, I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah. Bye.